I believe love has no distance. The love I have for my children is fierce and cannot be severed by distance, time, or even death. My name is Susa Young Gates, and I am no stranger to death. My oldest son, Bailey, was 19 when he was killed in a horrific and preventable explosion. 7 of my 13 children died before the age of 5. I was born on March 18, 1856, to Lucy Bigelow and Brigham Young, founder of the Mormon religion. I was my father's 41st child. My mother was my father's 22nd wife. My faith has had a large impact on my life, and in turn, it has a direct impact on my children. I married my first husband, Alma Dunford, at 16. We had 2 children, Bailey and Leah. Alma was a prominent dentist, a hard worker, and we had a comfortable life in Utah. We were married for 6 years before his drinking problem became too much to bear, and at 22, I made the difficult decision to leave my husband to raise Bailey and Leah and start a new life. Bailey had more life experience than most young men his age. He left Utah and moved to Butte, Montana. Bailey and I communicated regularly through letters and treasured them. I told Bailey that if he kept the most recent letter in his pocket, that he would always have my love and support, and I would always be with him. I hope my son remembered this during his final moments, as the letter in his pocket was how my son was identified after the explosion. It was a bone-chilling night on January 15th, 1895. Most Butte residents were keeping warm indoors, staying close to their wood and coal stoves. The explosion was caused by a small fire in a Cannon wood stove tucked away in the corner office in the Kenyon Connell Warehouse building, which sold general merchandise and small amounts of explosives. Unknown to the community of Butte, the warehouse was storing illegal amounts of explosives, and that seemingly small warehouse fire was about to turn into a deadly explosion. One of the many factors that contributed to my son's death was the placement of rattleheads around the explosives. Rattleheads surrounded the dynamite, protecting the dynamite from the stray bullets and other sources of impact. Instead of protecting the dynamite, the rattleheads became deadly debris, flying in all directions. My ex-husband, Mr. Dunford, and our daughter, Leah, traveled to Butte to claim Bailey's body, and then they accompanied Bailey to Montpelier, Idaho. On January the 26th, 1895, funeral services were conducted by President Budge, Bishop Price, and Elder Peter Greenhouse in Bloomington, Idaho. It gave me slight comfort when I was told that my son's body was not torn or mangled, and the only mark on his face was a slight abrasion. Although there were many survivors, many who were not killed on impact suffered a prolonged death. The only peace I have is that my Bailey was killed on impact and did not suffer, and he is in a better place. I will always wonder why my son was at the scene of the explosion. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he didn't deserve to lose his life. My son Bailey will always be in my heart, as his last letter will always be in my pocket.
My name is Jim. I'm one of the fire horses in Butte, Montana. Baldy, Nig, Prince, and I were spending a cold winter night in our warm stalls, eating grain, hay, and dozing off with the firemen relaxing nearby. At 9:55 p.m., an alarm came in from a call box number 72. Fire! Once the stall gates opened, we dashed to the wagons. Harnesses dropped onto our backs as we stood patiently waiting for the driver and the fireman to jump aboard. We flew out of the station as fast as our hooves could go. Nig and Prince were pulling the hose wagon, and Baldy and I were pulling the ladder wagon. A thin layer of ice covered the streets, but our special horseshoes kept us from slipping. Then we smelled the smoke and saw the flames. We knew fear, but were well trained to handle the chaos. There were people everywhere, some to assist us, some spectators. We were 60 feet to the east of Nig and Prince. Dave McGee was starting to blanket Nig and Prince when suddenly there was a huge, powerful force knocking Baldy and I to the ground. As I regained consciousness, I was very confused. Baldy was not moving and ignored my struggles to stand up. I nickered stridently to wake him up, but he just lay there. I could smell fear, blood, and smoke. I could hear screams and moaning, but I could not see through the dust and the smoke. I felt cold and wet. Suddenly, I felt incredible pain all over my body. The wetness I felt was blood from Baldy, and some was mine. I realized my friend and teammate was not going to wake up. He was gone. But I knew I had to get up. I was trapped by the harness that held us together, when suddenly I felt a human touch and heard a voice saying, "Hold on, boy. I'll get you help." I was quickly surrounded by voices. Hands were cutting away at my harness and stroking me. Baldy was pulled off me, and I was able to slowly and painfully rise from the ground. The scene around me was nothing I'd ever experienced in my lifetime. Death was everywhere. Nig and Prince lay still and did not answer my call to get up. I laid my muzzle on Baldy and told him goodbye. I realized my friends would not be coming back to the fire station, but I knew I needed to go there. I was so cold, every step was incredibly painful. Small pieces of flesh hung from my body. Blood dripped down slowly from the wounds, but I knew if I could just get to the firehouse, I would be okay. It was a struggle to stay upright as I painfully walked up Arizona Street towards the central station. My head was very heavy as I trudged on. I knew where safety was, and I was determined to get there, but when I arrived, no one came to greet me. No welcoming weenies. I was battered and alone, but I knew to stay in my safe place until help arrived. After what seemed like an eternity, there were cries of joy when I was discovered, and soon I was inside and being taken care of. The following hours and days, the tears of the firemen continued to fall as I cleaned up my wounds. They too had lost friends. The stalls of Baldy, Nig, and Prince were empty, but other horses at the fire station nickered softly to me. They could sense my pain and heartbreak. I was not the proud horse who left the fire station at night. I was damaged physically and mentally, but I knew I would recover. I had been through hell and came out the other side. 3 days after the explosion, the street in front of the central fire station was full of people and wagons to take the bodies of the 13 firemen, along with many of the citizens who died that fateful night, to the cemetery. Some horses pulling the wagons and buggies were from a variety of fire departments in Butte. They pulled the wagons with coffins and flowers. How I wanted to go, but I was too badly injured to have that honor. I slowly healed from my injuries. The fire chief said I would be retired, but I had different ideas. When I was healthy enough, I occasionally helped out to the fire department, cheerfully pulling the horse wagon, but would violently kick at the hook and ladder wagon when I was close to it. I helped train new horses from Butte and even went to Anaconda to train new horses. Occasionally, I was put in green pastures for the summer, but was always ready to go back to work. I was given the honor of being Chief Peter Sanger's buggy horse, a job I loved. I always chuckle when I remember the night I went to Chief Sanders' house with a buggy, all by myself. The fireman who harnessed me was just too slow. In the years following 1895, my greatest honor was taking wagon loads of flowers to the cemetery when the memorial events for the firemen took place. The citizens of Butte were good to me as I aged. I wanted for nothing from petting to treats and chewing tobacco. Tobacco, a habit I got from my fireman friends. The people of Butte think of me as Jim the Extraordinary Fire Horse, but I'm just Jim, the luckiest and only fire horse to survive the Great Butte Warehouse Explosion of 1895.